Askreddit Asks, Reddit, what's the most chaotic good thing you've ever seen?
Kid I went high school with was a 2-time state champion wrestler. He was terrifying, built like a brick shit house by the time he was 14. By the time he was 18 he was a solid wall of muscle. He was also a vicious prick, highly aggressive, and a big-time bully. To other bullies this kid would beat the ever-loving shit out of anyone who fucked with someone that couldn't defend themselves. If he saw a bigger kid fucking with a smaller kid, they were toast. Dude was the fucking Superman of my school. If anyone was giving you shit, you went to him. He'd take care of it after school.
Was at a market in Mozambique with a guide. Guide asks stall seller if he has any really fresh pangolin, illegal as hell and endangered. Seller shows him a box with 2 live ones. Guide turns to me and yells, "Run!" Punches the seller, grabs the box, and books it across the market toward where we had parked. He released the critters later that day. It was an interesting trip.
If anybody is curious about what a pangolin is, it's something like a combination between an anteater and an armadillo, and it's trafficked for its meat and scales.
I knew someone who once played a extended prank on a friend where he filled up his gas tank. When the tank was low he'd steal his keys, sneak out, go to the station, fill it up, bring the car back and put the keys back. Took him months to figure out what was going on.
Why can't someone prank me like this?
He should have played dumb and kept getting free gas.
That's really generous. My friends are assholes who put spicy shit on my food or take awful videos of me drunk dancing.
When I was still in my medical training in Westwood, I often saw a middle-aged gentleman putting coins into expired meters. The one time I saw a meter maid try to approach him and he ran off giggling. A few months later I saw him at a stop sign in a Maserati. Basically the definition of chaotic good. Edit, fixed many small grammar issues, thanks grammar-inclined internet strangers.
Okay, but the giggling really made this one.
You saw the meter fairy? Question mark. Question mark.
I worked in a Starbucks as a student. One day, one of our regulars came in crying as she found out her boyfriend had been cheating on her. Our shift supervisor took out a full chocolate cake, dropped it on the counter from a height of about 2 centimeters and said, "Oh no. I dropped it. Can't sell it now." Handed her the cake, a fork and a canister of whipped cream while I made her a free drink. He then proceeded to tell people that we were out of cake for the day. 10 years on, still remember the smile she gave us. Update. Never had upvotes and comments like this before. Thanks guys. And yes, I agree, my manager back then rocked.
In my country, potholes are notorious for going unchecked. A Facebook group sprung up called Adopt a Pothole, and it started as just posting pics of potholes and tagging the government agency in charge. The government is responsible for damages to cars caused by potholes that they are aware of, so they tagged them as proof. But they still weren't getting filled. And that's when it got wild. People started planting palm trees inside the potholes and posting those pictures. I can only assume it was effective, because I saw a pic of one near my neighborhood. Went and saw it to confirm, and within a few days it had been filled. Edit. Felt the need to share some of the pics from the Facebook group. God, I love my country and my URL redacted, gallery, xni xuba, edit 2. Yes. Those are banana trees. Sorry. In Spanish they are considered, classified as a palm tree.
I watched this methed out dude tweaking hard for a bit in a mall. Just like pacing and twitching and muttering. Then this dude bolts out of a store with shoes in his arms, obviously stolen, and the meth head clotheslines him and yells a victory scream before security came in. Sadly he got banned from the mall. IRC edit. Spelling of clothesline.
Meth head defends company profits, company bans meth head, lawful evil.
My mum. She's a guerrilla gardener. She's in her early 60s and she goes out at night with a gang of her pensioner mates and plants flowers. Sows seeds and tidies neglected public land, like roundabouts and grass verges. I'm pretty sure she knows who's been yarn bombing round here too. But she refuses to grass them up.
I wish she was my mom. Holy fuck, she sounds epic.
I remember reading a headline in R, Not the Onion that I'll try best to paraphrase. Man high on LSD turns himself in to police for theft after breaking into his neighbor's house and stealing their dog because he mistakenly imagined the building to be on fire. Edit. A lot of people saying that's not how acid works. This was the reason he gave. Which was probably simpler than explaining what was really going on in his head at the time.
Not something I saw, but something my brother saw. He was on a bus in London. And this elderly woman got on. There were no free seats. But this was largely because two teenagers were spreading themselves out across 2 seats each. This big, hulking South African guy tells them to move up and make room for her. They swear at him and give all that cocky attitude teenagers are famous for. He gets up, yanks one of them to his feet, shoves him back so that he's sitting in one seat, and in the thickest Afrikaans accent you could possibly imagine, tells him plainly, you must be very careful who you're rude to. Hey, they fucking backed down after that.
I read that in a Skyrim Whiterun guard voice.
How large was the African lad? If he was truly hulking they shouldn't have given him shit.
I was at a party and someone wearing kilt was forcing sunscreen on everyone. He would say hi in the nicest voice and offer you one of his beers. But only if you put sunscreen on. He was the coolest.
When you said forcing sunscreen on people, I imagined him jumping out of the bushes and just slathering you in sunscreen.
This is delightfully weird.
One of my friends stole a ladder from a garage to help a kid down from a tree and then put it back.
Do you visit him in prison?
My sister and her husband tried to train their corgi to bark at their cat whenever the cat broke one of the house rules. Unfortunately, the corgi never had a firm grasp on the cat rules, and at this point he's just making up his own cat rules to try to enforce. Sister just had her first baby a couple weeks ago. Corgi feels like this is an important development and he should have a role. Corgi decides that his role is to protect the baby from the cat, which involves a lot of barking at the cat while the baby is sleeping.
I love dogs, and would never seriously call them stupid. But, I feel like this is too complicated of a job for the dog.
Well, that backfired.
Definitely the French secret society Les UX. They built an amazing, fully stocked wooden bar and movie theater in the catacombs that had been in use for some years when it was discovered by Parisian utility workers. Later, a team of UX commandos secretly fixed an iconic broken clock in the Pantheon. From Wikipedia, the UX for Urban Experiment is an underground organization that improves hidden corners of Paris. Their works have included restoring the Pantheon clock, building a cinema, complete with bar and restaurant, underneath the Trocadero, restoring medieval crypts, and staging plays and readings in monuments after dark. The group's membership is largely secret.
And then the administration stopped the clock from working by removing one of its parts.
I didn't see it personally, but I heard the story from this guy's roommate, who did get to witness it. It's freshman year of college. 2 of my neighbors, Colin and George, were rushing the same frat. My roommate had a thing for George, so she invited him and his roommates over for breakfast one morning. We ask about what they're up to, make small talk, all that jazz. Turns out George was just banned from the frat for doing drugs. What did he do, you may ask? He doesn't remember, but according to Colin, they were at a party and George saw someone slip something into a girl's drink. Rather than take a logical approach, tell her not to drink it. Take it from her and pour it out. So on and so forth. George ripped it from her hand and chugged it himself.
I was a teenager at a hardcore show. And one of the only non-white kids in the building. I'm at the edge of the pit, keeping the line, when suddenly I take a hard fist across the face out of nowhere. Catching a stray hit in the face is pretty normal for this situation. But the reaction of everyone around me lets me know that somebody may have targeted me. Like seconds after this, A tall lanky white kid I've never seen before launches a straight out of the Shaolin Temple flying kick to the face on a guy in the pit who just happens to be wearing a logo associated with local neo-Nazis. Nazi dude gets laid out. And the lanky kid jukes out the Nazis' buddies and flies out the building and into the night.
The hardcore scene doesn't fuck around with racism.
I remember a few years ago there were some rogue vigilantes that spray-painted images of dicks into potholes that had gone unfixed for too long. The potholes were fixed shortly after thanks to their dick graffiti. I'll try to find the article if anyone's interested. Infernal Wedgie got that link in the comments. E2. You're goddamn right, his name's Wansky.
Meanwhile, someone tried doing that in New Zealand and the NZTA just shrugged and said, well, now you have potholes and dicks. Enjoy.
A friend was working in the when she was going to school, and a woman came in who had her arm broken when someone stole her purse. As that woman was being checked, a man came in who was hit by a truck after the driver saw him stealing a woman's purse and running away. Purse was returned.
One day my mother was sitting on a crowded tram. Beside her was some punk with safety pins on his clothes, chewing a wad of gum. Opposite was a woman with a little girl, maybe about 8 years old. The kid is swinging her legs like kids do and keeps kicking my ma'am in the shins. Ma'am politely asks her to stop. The kid's mother tells her that she won't tell the kid to stop because her parenting coach has said she has no right to impose rules on her kid's choices and that everybody should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. Tram pulls in, and the punk beside my mother takes the gum out of his mouth, reaches over, squishes it between the lady's eyebrows, winks at ma'am, and leaves.
Just added this to my life goals.
1998. Tense elections in the Caribbean. Dominican Republic. Guys campaigning off a truck dropping free produce to locals. Some lady down the road from my aunt's house got hit with 40 pounds of a plantain batch to her face. She got up, smiled at the free food, and limped away happily.
Plantain batch, bitch.
Sounds like the time back in 2008 that it was frozen chickens that was being thrown at people in a political rally back in Santiago, I believe.
Trust fund kid and his clique that would show up to your random college party with a literal trunk load of booze and drugs. It was his mission to turn parties into shit shows, likely for his own entertainment. He was just a really nice and fun person too. If it weren't for the fact he'd shrug off throwing down $1,000 on booze, you'd never guess he was anything but just a nice hard-working college-age kid.
I'm gonna paraphrase something said by Taliesin Jaffa. Make people deal with you, but make dealing with you a positive and kind experience. I mean, fuck yeah.
When I was like 11, I was at the beach with family. I found this stuff called fart spray, exactly what it sounds like, and really wanted it. But my dad said no. My aunt decided it'd be funny to buy me it and torture her brother. So she bought it in secret. We met my dad and some other family to all ride this shuttle further down the boardwalk. I couldn't hold my excitement and blabbed immediately about my new purchase. My dad took it from me and scolded my aunt. I sat down defeated. Few minutes later, this drunk lady and her friends get on the bus. Clearly out doing a night of bar hopping. The one lady is being really loud and cussing a lot. My dad asked her to tone it down and was berated with profanities. He sat quietly through it. Then as the lady went to get off the bus, I see him hit her with a squirt from the fart spray.
So perfectly childish. Long.
A Brazilian drug dealer kidnapped medical staff to force them to vaccinate a community for yellow fever source. URL redacted, edit. Thank you for making this my most upvoted thing on Reddit. Closing parenthesis.
In a world where the order is controlled by the evil, all the good is chaotic good. Edit. Help me Reddit. I'm an original or a derivative peasant.
Tipping the waitress like 40%. but at least 10% of that in loose change.
In middle school, we ran out of money to leave a good tip, so we left about $15 worth of Jelly Belly jelly beans that we'd bought at the candy store.
There was a playground by my childhood home that was broken and fenced off for several months. I set it on fire, and after it burned down they replaced it within a few weeks.
That's right. Burn shit down! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! For good, of course. When I was in high school, there was one kid who was about a foot taller than everyone in the class and built like a rhino. He would beat up kids every day for no reason and would get away with it because no one would do anything about it. One day we had a casual teacher spot him from across the school beating on some younger kids. This teacher ran at him and hit him like a train. Flipped this kid like an egg. The bully left the school a few weeks later and the teacher lost his job. But he will always be remembered as the one who saved the school. I've been out of school now for a few years and it still comes up in conversation.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day, you incredible people.